Hello, dear colleagues, participants, our dear partners. My name is Maria Dmitrieva. I represent the organization Center for Democracy Development, and we gathered on the first of three events that our organization, Center for Democracy Development, organizes on the initiative of the Ministry of Social Policy and with support of UN Women in Ukraine, in cooperation with the caucuses of the parliament, equal opportunities, national agency for state service, and highest public service academy. We are thankful to the partners for participating and for support. Today's topic of the meeting, no, before we speak about the topic, all three events will be conducted as a part of preparation for development of new targeted program of the government, counteraction to the trafficking for the period until 2028, if I recall correctly. And our today's topic is the topic of surrogacy, surrogate motherhood. The next topic on 18th of April, I think it will be, held sexual exploitation online and pornography. And last topic, on the 29th, prostitution and demand for prostitution as a problem of trafficking. Together with us, in addition to Ukrainian institutions, International Coalition for Banning of Surrogacy, European Network of Migrants, and International Action Platform OVPI. We are also thankful for cooperation. We are thankful to Ombudsman for counteraction of trafficking for expert support. The last thing I wanted to tell you before we get to the event proper and the program, that the topic that we discuss is part of the international commitments of Ukraine. In particular, Convention of United Nations for elimination of all discrimination against women, and other documents, and is important for harmonization of Ukrainian legislation to the norms of the EU. We will start with greetings, and after that, we will have a small report from Alexandra Novikova, sorry, not Novitska, but Novikova. Miss Novikova, are you with us? Please tell me. I don't see you. Ah, great. You are here. Make her co-host too, please. And after that, we will have 4 expert speeches from Tatiana Rudenko from OSCE. I'll fully introduce her. After that, Marie-Joseph de Villiers, who is the head of the International Coalition for Banning of Surrogacy. After her, Ms. Sheila Suryanarayana, and Azoriana Skaletska will be the last expert to speak, the deputy of the Kyiv City Council, who used to be the Minister of Healthcare of Ukraine in the years 2019-2020. And after that, a bit of discussion probably, if we have time. Ms. Zoriana, tell me if you connected, because I cannot see you. Hopefully she will be here. Are you here? Yes, I'm here. Gennady, please, this excellent lady, make her co-host too, so that I can easily find her. And I give floor for introduction to Ms. Oksana Poshtova, State Expert of the Ministry of Social Policy of Ukraine. Ms. Oksana, please, your floor. Ms. Oksana, we cannot hear. We cannot hear you. Now, can you hear me? Yes, we can. Greetings again to all participants of the educational institution from the Ministry of Social Policy. As Maria Dmitrieva said, these events are initiated by us as a part of implementation of the state program for counteracting of trafficking until 2028. And we, as national coordinator, already started developing new program as national coordinator, which will be in effect until 2028 or maybe until 2030. It's not determined yet. What is the goal of the events? First, better understanding of the legislation of other countries in trafficking, and also getting acquainted to advanced practices in this sphere. Why did we decide to conduct these events right now? Because after the training, we plan strategic planning sessions to develop the new governmental program. And we hope very much that in your educational institutions, you will be able to receive certificates of the training. But before you are able to receive them, we want to receive your initiatives about your vision and participation in the new state program, considering the challenges and current conditions that we are in. So I wish everyone fruitful work. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Oksana. Now I invite Yulia Honchar for gender responsible management. I'm from UN Women, and I want to thank you on behalf of UN Women to thank the partners, Minister of Social Policy, for organizing these events. And I want to thank national consultants of UN Women, Maria Dmitrieva and Ella Lamach, for organizing these events and great contribution to them, and all participants who joined to us today. And we as organization are ready to support such events that allow us to listen to voices of women and men, so that the next program to be developed will be taking into account the needs of various types of representatives of Ukrainian society, so that it is so it is very representative. We wish you a great work. Thank you, Yulia. Thank you for very reliable support from UN Women and for your incessant support of the rights of women in Ukraine. Now I invite representative of the Higher School of Public Administration, Lyudmila Litovska, without whose support we wouldn't be able to conduct this event. Dear colleagues, I'm very glad to greet you at this event. I want to join my colleagues in thanking our partners for organizing the event, because the topics that will be considered today and in the future events, they are very, very important for Ukraine. So we need to pay attention to them. We do it already because training and retraining of public servants in trafficking is one of the priorities for us. In particular, we developed retraining program, mechanisms and tools for counteraction of human trafficking, together with national services and migration services. Based on this program, public servants are being trained, and in the last 2 years, 600 public servants were trained. We are thankful to our participants who connected. We are glad that this training has such a high demand. And it's great that they are from various walks of life: public servants, NGOs, local self-government members who are interested in this topic. We are glad that this topic is important for them and they are ready to listen about this. This training, I'm sure, will be a valuable experience for you. So I will not delay you any longer. I wish you success and successful application of the knowledge you will acquire today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Valentina. And we are over with greetings, initial greetings. I want to invite Alexandra Novikova to the microphone, who is representing European Migrant Association, and she will tell you about what Ukrainian migrants in Europe have to face, in particular related to surrogacy. My name is Alexandra Novikova. Today I represent European Network of Migrant Women. Sorry? I'm personally also a migrant for 13 years already. I currently reside in Greece, and I wanted to become the voice of migrant women because this topic is very important. And I think this is not covered enough, surrogacy, surrogate motherhood. I wanted to tell about our network. Our organization is non-partisan platform that unites more than 50 organizations, activists in over 50 countries. And all our members are refugees, migrants, ethnic minorities, etc. And we all strive for equality and human dignity and respect to our rights. I wanted to start with my personal story, because I'm sure that many of our today's speakers will be telling about factual laws or rules. I wanted to tell you a personal story. Several years ago, I received a message from a migrant, from another migrant, and she said, I want to offer you an earning opportunity. I tried it myself. I know how it works. Don't worry. First, I didn't understand what kind of job I'm offered. But later she explained that it's donors of eggs, that is safe in Greece. She has acquaintances, and you can go abroad, travel as you go. By giving this example, I wanted to emphasize that Ukrainian migrants, all migrants in fact, are one of the most vulnerable groups for this. In addition to factors that affect the life of every woman, women abroad don't have social network to rely on. They don't have support. They have financial instability. And when someone you trust tells you it's easy money, many of them will succumb to that. And I wanted to remind you about the European network of migrants research with the police on surrogacy. We started to cooperate with the police in 2022, and we conducted research that shows that surrogacy is often not a choice for women, especially migrants. Women get into situations where they are just used, forced. They understand that they don't have other choice but to comply. Many of such organizations that do it threaten or manipulate, because migrants are very vulnerable, and they offer care, they offer salary, they offer psychological support. You will meet your peers. It's very realistic, and many women agree and sign such contracts. And later they become victims of exploitation. They don't have a way out. They're afraid to lose documents. They don't know where they will live. This is very important. I wanted to express it from as my own personal opinion. Because I was studying here, I had to abandon studies and seek job. I had no money. And sometimes these variants that sound very reliable, in fact, are very dangerous. And my personal case, I understood that the danger is near, even as I started. And for the time when I received that offer, I've been living in Greece for several years. And I understood that there are women who are refugees from Ukraine. They just escaped the war. and they will easily be able to agree to this trap. In Greece constantly has this problem. There are scandals about this, surrogacy related. Last case was in 2023, when in Crete Island, one of gynecologists in reproductive clinic against the law, saying that surrogacy for financial gain is not possible, but donation of eggs can be performed as volunteer act. They abuse this clause, this loophole, and they abuse women who find themselves in hard circumstances. Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra. Alexandra will meet us on the next events too. Now we will get to expert opinions and speeches, and I give floor to Tetiana Rudenka, Senior OSCE Office Representative, and she will tell us about the topic surrogacy and trafficking risks, the strategic approach. You have 20 minutes, Tetiana. Thank you. First of all, hello everyone, hello to the participants. We are very glad that you invited OSCE to participate in this important discussion, because our Office of Special Representative and Coordinator for Counteraction to Trafficking, is the office that probably the only one in the world that has mandate to deal with counteraction of trafficking in all forms of exploitation, and also preventative work is also our mandate, which means we really have such a comprehensive approach to trafficking counteraction, and our mandate is helping 57 participants of OSCE participants, and Ukraine is one of them, to work out best practices in this sphere, so that the politicians that adopt laws could follow these practices. Surrogacy is one of the new challenges, and we wanted to contribute in this event. I am the senior specialist of the project. Because you hear about the project, I am the head of the project in the Secretariat of OSCE. We are in Vienna, Austria, that takes care about the countries where are the most Ukrainian refugees. We work with 30 countries that has the most Ukrainians who were forced to leave Ukraine due to war. And we work with these countries so that they are always paying attention to human trafficking counteraction. It's already 3 years since the full-scale invasion of Russia, and we focused attention on better detection of trafficking and victims of it, and helping them. As to surrogacy, I'll start with terminology. The terminology is very important. When we talk about surrogacy, we need to differentiate between partial surrogacy and full surrogacy. The majority of you will talk about the latter. Traditional or partial surrogacy, there is a genetic link between the surrogate mother and the child. But future parents in Ukrainian terminology, there are also legal parents. They are unfortunately not always legal parents. So I offer to use the terminology future parents, not other terminology. And future parents might not be related to the child. As to full surrogacy, in full surrogacy, the mother is not genetically connected with the child, so she's not providing any genetic material, and she doesn't have any genetic link to the child. And this is the majority of cases we are dealing with in the context of trafficking. Also, around surrogacy, there is such a type as altruistic surrogacy. This is an issue of helping parents who cannot have children, and that's why altruistic surrogate mothers do not receive any monetary remuneration except compensation of expenses, etc. Sometimes, in addition to expenses, they compensate pain and suffering, maybe lost profit, etc. But it's not commercial. As to global industry of surrogacy, you can see on this graph how high demand for it is. Last year, it was $14 billion, the market. Next year, the forecast is growth of this industry until $130 billion. This is due growth of childlessness and disease, or just loneliness of both parents who want to have children and lonely parents who want to have children and who want to avoid long lines and complications of adopting in their countries. And also surrogacy is banned in some countries. After COVID, there was a large increase in demand for surrogacy, and you probably understand why. As to regulation of EU countries, some countries of the EU do regulate surrogacy. They permit it, first of all. It's not banned. You see examples. Portugal, there is a law. Netherlands, they're discussing proposals of how to regulate altruistic surrogacy. Some countries, the discussions are still pending, in most, in fact. In Greece and Ireland, mostly these laws are adopted already. And you see on the slide, they permit only the previously approved cases, not the new ones. Others banned the surrogacy. Other countries of the EU ban surrogacy. And there is a ban in Italy that bans its own citizens to buy the services of surrogacy abroad. So Italians are not allowed even to enter into contracts about surrogacy abroad, only in their own country. The common in such regulations is, first of all, commercial surrogacy is banned. They only allow altruistic approach. A special body for overseeing this is created in most countries. And consent of this body needs to be received before the contract. And the advertisement of surrogacy is also banned. It's only allowed under the supervision of this special body. Additional provisions that try to regulate this process and to create a safe environment around the surrogacy is family courts that confirm surrogacy cases. For example, in Greece, it is before the contract is signed, or in other countries, it can be done already after the procedure, but, like Ireland, but still after giving birth to the child, so that through family courts settle legal guardianship and parenthood. And they need to stay in the country where the procedure is done. And Germany establishes the term you have to live there for at least 2 years. Age limitations for parents include age restrictions and reasonable expectations, so that parents are able to receive this child within at least 18 years. Various expenses for maternity, like Greece has a list of stipulated procedures. Which procedures are cost what, and how much can they cost? Like one time for physical stress, 10,000 euro. For one pregnancy, 15,000 euro. For multiple pregnancy with multiple embryos. So they regulate the payment, the compensation that surrogate mothers receive. As to the requirements to surrogate mothers, physical health, ability to give birth, and also age. Age needs to be taken into account. Psychological evaluation, place of residence, except Cyprus. In Cyprus, you are allowed to find surrogate mother abroad, but they need to stay in Cyprus during pregnancy. And surrogate mother, any given woman is allowed to become surrogate mother only twice in their life. This is a lifelong limitation. And of course, if the surrogate mother is married, the partner needs to give consent. The new directive of EU that came into effect in 2024 added surrogacy as form of exploitation in trafficking, and the preamble clearly states that this position of the directive is focused on those who forces or misleads women for them to become surrogate mothers. So the component of surrogate maternity as form of exploitation is defined clearly.
Перш за все, варто згадати діяльність Гаазької конференції з міжнародного приватного права, оскільки вони працюють над інструментом, над конвенцією міжнародною щодо батьківства. І от в контексті цієї роботи виникла також потреба і дискусія про сурогатне материнство і врегулювання цього питання. І оскільки питання настільки складне, що протягом 7 років, ви бачите, з 15 по 22 рік, експертна група не змогла дійти згоди, то сурогатне материнство вони вирішили розглядати окремо і будуть дивитися на можливість створення окремого протоколу про сурогатне материнство, але це ще робота в процесі. Європейський суд з прав людини. Це цікаво, тому що дуже багато...
Sorry, disconnect on the interpreter side. Starting from 2014, surrogacy all is related to
яке було встановлено за кордоном майбутнім батькам. Я особливо хочу підкреслити позицію, яку було висловлено судом в справі Д та інші проти Бельгії, про те, що держава може вимагати підтвердження генетичного зв'язку перед тим, як дозволити дитині, народженій від сурогатного материнства, в'їхати в країну. І якраз в цьому випадку Україна була тією країною, де відбувалося сурогатне материнство. Сурогатну маму не було вказано в документах, тобто була вказана майбутня мама. А оскільки майбутня мама фізично не народжувала ту дитину, тобто бельгійські органи влади не мали ніяких медичних довідок про те, що ця жінка була вагітна, що ця жінка народжувала, тобто традиційним шляхом встановити її батьківство не було можливо, то вирішили, що треба шукати зв'язків з
And
батьком.
again, the interpreter is back, trouble with connection. They invite DNA expertise to confirm at least paternity test for the father and to allow entrance of the child. This caused a lot of hardship for all the family, for everyone involved, but the court admitted it was justified to prevent criminal charges, including trafficking in surrogacy. As two registered cases, colleagues already mentioned that there are such cases. And I wanted to give one of the cases in Greece, because in the beginning Alexandra mentioned this country. A loud case was in 2019, when the police of the city of Saloniki arrested over 66 people. It was a large network that was trafficking in people from Bulgaria, Russia, Moldova, and other countries who were being exploited in many ways. They were bringing pregnant women that were giving babies for illegal adoption. They were providing services of surrogacy through these women and taking eggs. This demonstrates the whole case. It was huge network. Many countries were involved. And this clearly shows that surrogacy is one of the forms. But women are being exploited not just in surrogacy, but also in other forms related to reproductive technologies or adoption cases. It doesn't need to be surrogacy. The statistics for 2023 that was reported to the hotline of Great Britain. It was the first case when Great Britain had 3 reports about surrogacy on the territory of Great Britain. The last famous case in the world is what you see to the right on your screen. The situation where over 100 Thailand women were forced to provide surrogacy services, but in fact they were invited as surrogate mothers, but when they arrived to Georgia they were forced to donate their eggs, and it's quite serious and painful procedure that has quite severe consequences. One of the victims had to buy such a victim of the traffickers, and she made it known. Such cases become more and more frequent in the world. Now, risks specifically for the child, because such directive speaks about the risks for women. Children are also under risk if surrogacy is abroad. This is one of the ways where you can establish legal relation between between parents and the child, because it's adoption or other procedure of confirmation. And it's problematic because we have our convention for interstate adoption. Basically, if there is any money exchange for adoption, this is against this convention, and it must be denied. Other procedures of confirmation are also quite difficult. If the names of the future parents are in the birth certificate and if the judge is not engaged to the procedure. So this all bears the risks that the child will be separated from the future parents and will have no access to legal rights. They confirmed, the European courts confirmed that the child cannot be given to the future children, and it was under guardianship of the state. There are risks of absence of identity because it's hard to tell if the child needs to become the citizen of the same country as their parents or no. It's quite tangled legally wise. Is there a right for heritage, legacy of material wealth? A lot of legal issues. It could be a long talk. I will not stop it here. And the good news here is in one of the European cases, the European Court for Legal Rights, is that the state needs to be establish link between surrogate child born through surrogacy and the future mother. At least this was said. Risks for the child, for the women. Agencies that focus on surrogacy often consciously specifically seek women in hard circumstances who lack support, lonely women with children, widows. Sometimes partners or parents force their women to become surrogate mothers for family income. It's very realistic risks for us too. Information given to the woman recruited for surrogacy can be incomplete or incorrect and false at all. They never say how psychologically taxing or physically taxing it is. What are possible legal consequences? And there is element of falsehood about the money that are to be paid. Also, the issue of medical care in case of any complications is a very realistic risks. It's just like with organ sale. Just as soon as they receive the organ they need to, they stop medical care. These Thai women who were exploited in Georgia, they were moving them through 5 or 6 countries, constantly relocating them. And this really increases the risk of their exploitation. Based on the international rules, it opens the door of bad treatment of women and increases gender stereotypes because woman is used just as a tool for receiving a child. Tatiana, please, your time is being up. You see that we conducted a research on request of the Ukrainian Ombudsman in 2013. We will do it for all the CE countries. Hopefully in 25-26 we will give you the research. And if you have any questions, you can use my contacts, they're here. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, colleagues, we don't have time for questions now. Our time for questions is after everyone speaks. I will allow just 2 comments for Tatiana's report. In Italy, they have a law banning purchase and ordering of children both inside Italy and outside Italy. It's not like it's permitted inside Italy, as you said. It's maybe the most progressive in Europe, legislation-wise. And the logic of ordering the child, the court took the child from the surrogate parents. The logic of the court was this: if they are so devoid of empathy that they buy a child, they cannot care about this child. So the child was taken from them and given to the relevant family orphanage care of states. And also companies that offer to foreign clients, they actively start to enter Ukrainian market. And outside of Ukraine, they market Ukrainian women as very easy because it's war and they are in dire straits. And if the war is over, they will find poorer countries. And indeed, we learned that they transport some women from other countries, poorer countries like Uzbekistan, and they give birth here. And where they transport it after that, we don't know. There is a language barrier. We cannot trace them. They cannot come to Ukrainian police. So Ukraine, from just country of origin, becomes the country of transit for surrogacy and trafficking. Tatiana gave us an overview of the legislation of EU, and the picture is not so bad, right? Something is regulated at least. But what does it look in practice for specific women, for specific children? We will listen to Miss Marie-Joseph de Villiers, who is the head of International Coalition for Ban of Surrogacy. You need to turn on your interpretation, dear Ukrainian listeners, because it will be in English. 3 dots, you choose the globe and Ukrainian channel. Please, Marie-Joseph. You are now able to share your screen and show your presentation to us.
Hi, I'm so honored to be invited to this so important event. As Maria said, I'm one of the 3 co-presidents of the International Coalition for the Abolition of Surrogate Motherhood. This international coalition was launched in 2018 as an umbrella, as a feminist umbrella organization. And it has now 50 organization members active in 17 countries in 3 continents. It aims to raise awareness among policymakers about what surrogacy really is. It's a global system that exploits women and commodifies babies. Sorry, I've got to. Yes, our vision on reproductive surrogacy. Surrogacy is a social practice and not assisted reproductive technology, art. Including surrogacy in art is a way of making people think that surrogacy is socially acceptable. Only IVF, in vitro fertilization, could be considered art, not surrogacy. Surrogacy is a violence against women and should be included as such in international instruments. The abolition of surrogacy is part of the feminist agenda. There are 3 pillars in our mapping of violence against women. One is violence caused by sexism and misogyny. The second is violence caused by sexual exploitation. And the third is violence caused by reproductive exploitation. Surrogacy is included in this third pillar, along with trade in oocytes, forced pregnancy, forced sterilization, forced abortion, and also the prohibition of contraception and abortion. I will now go over three topics: the dissymmetry between commissioning people and surrogate mother. I said word as important as Tatiana said. And I said commissioning people and not intended parents, which is the word coined by the market, by the industry. In Spain, feminists would call them baby buyers. Second, surrogacy is a predatory system on women. 3, surrogacy is a predatory system on countries, and surrogacy and this industry hijacks medical resources. About dissymmetry, everywhere in every situation, surrogate mothers are in a position of inferiority in relation to the clients, to the commissioning people. In the US, the commissioning people have considerable means, according to one study, and access to sufficient bank loans to go into surrogacy. US surrogates, on the other hand, are from the working class or lower middle class. This reminds me of the case of an American nurse who decided to become a surrogate mother in order to supplement a meager future pension. It is clear that the lack of social benefits pushes women to find a solution that put their life and health at risk, either through surrogacy, egg donation, or prostitution. An Australian study examined the disparity between the commissioning people and the surrogates in domestic cases. In domestic cases where the surrogates were relatives or friends of the so-called intended parents. The study concluded that intended women parents were more likely than surrogate mothers to live in the most advantaged neighborhoods, to be younger and more educated, and to be employed in professional occupations. It is clear, even among people of the same background, country, even family, there is a socio-economic gap between commissioning people and surrogate mothers. In our long-term research and follow-up of surrogate mothers in India, Sheila, who is here today, that I greet right now, Sheila said that despite the money they receive, surrogate mothers have never managed to improve their economic situation in the long term. The money they receive is always invested in the betterment of their family or the education of their children, but never in themselves. The surrogacy industry has developed 2 types of product range, one for quality-conscious clients and the other for low-cost surrogacy demand. Here is a quote I like very much. Sorry, back to the quote. Here's a quote. It's a long quote. The resources of the human body are more available and affordable in low-income countries where poor and vulnerable populations are both available in large numbers and perceived as more willing than citizens of wealthier countries to risk their personal health for minimal financial reward. As soon as it became possible to produce a white baby with a black or a colored woman, the industry moved to Africa and Asia and developed also the local market for surrogacy. In Greece, as Tatiana said, surrogacy is supposedly regulated as altruistic. In 2013, 2019, and 2023, cases of human trafficking were discovered. The police raided trafficking network involved in surrogacy. The UN rapporteur on violence against women, in a letter to the Greek government, wrote that in Greece, poor or migrant women are selected as surrogate mothers precisely because of their vulnerable situation. And she also said that 60% of surrogate mothers are not Greek citizens. Most of them come from Bulgaria, Poland, Georgia, Albania, and Romania. But don't be mistaken, even in rich countries, there are poor and vulnerable population to be exploited, especially migrant, refugee, or women without regular income. And let's not forget that surrogate pregnancy is 3 times riskier than a natural pregnancy. Why put young, vulnerable women at risk? This is what should be called exploitation and also human trafficking. And yes, the industry is based on human trafficking. According to the Palermo Protocol, issued in 2000, trafficking is based on 3 conditions: an action, several means, and a purpose, a goal. The action. Surrogate mothers are recruited by the industry under very strict criteria. They are also transported from their home to the IVF clinic, from their country to the country of the commissioning people, or to another country for embryo transfer and delivery of the child. These cases are highlighted in our joint study with the European network of migrant women that we issued this research in 2022. The means: the recruitment of a surrogate mother is carried out on a triple deception, 3 lies. The first lie is that the child is not being sold. Second, that the surrogate mother is not the mother. 3, that the child she gives birth to is not her own. However, she is the mother. This is also evidenced by the fact that in all cases, she is required to relinquish her parental rights over the child. And the purpose is, of course, exploitation. And for us, exploitation occurs whenever a woman gives birth to a child, not for her own parental project, but for the project of a third party, which is the case in surrogacy. In conclusion, we can claim that surrogacy is equal to human trafficking. Mapping the flow of surrogate babies, just like in this map of a study on 4 important surrogate baby providers, mapping the flow of surrogate babies would show that most are commissioned in low-income countries for the richest Western countries or for the rich citizens of the country. Researchers have studied this trend and called it extractivism. Extractivism It is the extraction of natural resources for export with minimal processing. This economic model is common throughout the global south. This concept has been extended to reproductive extractivism, a way of transferring and appropriating human resources from one country to wealthier country. It is said that before the invasion of Ukraine, the surrogacy industry produced around 2,000 babies a year, mainly for foreigners. And so we can say that Ukraine too has become a victim of extractivism. In South Africa, I was deeply shocked to learn that a highly technical medical sector had developed for wealthy South Africans for surrogacy, but that ordinary women citizens had little access to medical care for their own pregnancy. In Uganda, Africa, a clinic has been set up by doctors trained in Western countries to provide IVF, in vitro fertilization, for rich Ugandan infertile couples. But soon they also offered surrogacy. The next step was to open up to cross-border surrogacy for people in Germany and in the Netherlands. These medical resources will never serve the Ugandan people, nor the women for their reproductive health. Well, yeah, what is driving the development of surrogacy worldwide? Of course, it's a patriarchal culture. We know that in Asia, in East Asia, influence of Confucianism, that is important because women have to produce a male heir. In some African country, to be recognized as women, you have to produce a baby. And in Western countries, the desire to have children promoted and marketed is promoted and marketed as a right. And it's a powerful market. We develop babies as a product. And what is something which is very important in surrogacy is the fact that there are so many actors involved in surrogacy. There are the clinics, there are the lawyers, there are the psychologists, there are all sort of sometimes hotel. For example, in Kenya, the tourism is very linked to also to surrogacy. And the industry is very powerful with its communication means, and they use it all the marketing tools like Black Friday, two babies for the price of one, sales of baby replacement, things like that. And this market is very plastic. If one country, just like India in 2015, stopped surrogacy or restricted surrogacy, on the spot, the agencies, the clinics, they moved to Kenya to provide the same surrogacy, the same service of surrogacy to foreigners. Here, the conclusion. We still have a long way to go, and we still have to work to put surrogacy definitely on the feminist agenda and from there on the human rights political agenda. Feminists have succeeded in putting the right of abortion, rape, and feminicide on the political agenda. Why not surrogacy? The answer is that we don't yet have the data to show the extent and the impact of surrogacy on women and children. In the case of abortion, rape, and feminicide, showing data made all the difference and helped to make politicians aware of the issue. But there is no data on surrogacy, either nationally or globally. But let's end with a few hope. As Tatiana said, Italy has made it illegal for Italian citizens to go abroad to have a baby through surrogacy. Those who break the law could face up to 2 years in prison. We hope that this will send a clear message that surrogacy is not compatible with human rights. And the European Union, as also Tatiana said, has clearly condemned surrogacy since 2015 in the annual report on human rights and democracy in the world, specifying that the practice of surrogacy undermines the human body of the women, since her body and its reproductive function are used as a commodity. And also the revised EU anti-trafficking directive, which came in force in July 2024, added surrogacy to the list of trafficking crimes, stating that the exploitation of surrogacy, forced marriage, and illegal adoption should be included as forms of exploitation in this directive. And here is an image promoting surrogacy on a clinic's website. You can see the surrogate giving birth and the clients, the commissioning people, so eager to take the newborn away. And here is what an artist has made of this image. Commenting on this painting, the artist Emmanuel Joff said the painting is meant to highlight the violence behind the gentle, seemingly flattering images of surrogacy, which is in fact a booming industry. Thank you for your attention.
Дякую, Марі-Жозеф.
Thank you, Marie-Joseph. Thank you for this frankly awful but also powerful picture that you have drawn for us. And I want to invite to speech Miss Sheila Suryanarayana from the University of Hyderabad in India, who will tell you what happened in this sphere in India, how they dealt with this issue and what they can share with us. What do we need to pay attention to? Please, Sheila, your floor.
Second, I'll just give me a moment. Can you hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to open the slideshow. Yeah. Can you see the slides now?
Yes, we can see your slides.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak at this forum. So basically, I will be going through the Indian case studies and seeing what kind of similarities can we draw for a country like Ukraine and other countries, of course. So as our feminists have already spoken, I won't dwell too much on it, but we had been warned several decades ago that when this technology came up, that it's going to go to other countries, especially the poorer countries are going to be become the wombs and breeding areas for, for the entire other rich countries. And that's exactly what happened. So if you look at what has happened, if you look at the slide, you can see that India, Thailand, Nepal, all these countries were booming with surrogacy in 2009 and so on. And then first Thailand, then Nepal, and then India banned commercial surrogacy. But you have, as Maria Joseph also said, how it moved to Kenya. These other countries got even more, extended market of surrogacy. So, but if you look at the popular source countries, they are usually the the more developed and the more richer countries. So it already speaks a lot. This entire graph shows you that the entire industry is based on global inequalities. Okay, so in my study, I found, so I did two studies, one in 2009 and 2019. I'll just have a look at the time. So yeah, so I did two studies, one in 2019 and 9 and 19. So in the 19 study, I interviewed 45 surrogate mothers. And in that study, I found that about 41% of the people who are coming, intended parents, were coming from abroad. So that's a huge amount. It's not a small, it's more than 33%, one third of the people coming from abroad, and another 15% were non-resident Indians. Okay, so this was the, and the money they were bringing in was almost, so you can see 3 lakhs in Indian money means about 3,000 euros. That was the amount that surrogate mothers were getting paid. And they were getting paid much more when the couples were coming from abroad. So there was a huge foreign currency coming in, and hence there was a demand for it. Okay, so if you look at why India became a hub, India became a hub basically because surrogate mothers did not have any rights on themselves, on their bodies. They did not have any right on their children, on the children that they were giving birth to. So this was a main reason. People say, oh, it is cheaper and all that, but basically people were coming, intended parents were coming because women did not have any rights over their the babies on their bodies. And the payment pattern was such that it's only when the baby was given to the intended parents, they had to pay the lump sum. Otherwise, they hardly had to. The cost was almost peanuts that they had to pay. And there were a lot of surrogate mothers who were, willing to become surrogate mothers. There were good medical facilities. An important point was there was a lot of illegal and unethical practices that was happening in India based on this legalization of surrogacy. So the legalization of surrogacy actually became a breeding ground for a lot of illegal and unethical practices and also trafficking. Okay, so we'll just talk about that later. So in 2021, India actually is a situation now where India has actually banned commercial surrogacy. We are allowing altruistic surrogacy, and there are still a lot of loopholes that people are using. But the reasons why you could see that India banned surrogacy was one, Thailand banned and then Nepal banned. And Nepal and India were very much connected. We still are connected when surrogacy. I'll talk about that later. There were deaths of surrogate mothers, unrecorded deaths of egg donors, custody battles, huge custody battles, especially from people from abroad into India, coming and doing surrogacy illegally. Abandonment of disabled children. In my case studies itself, I have found, disabled children who are left on the streets. Okay. Exploitation of women, we'll talk about. Trafficking, we'll talk about. So it followed after Thailand and Nepal. So briefly about my study, I did one in 2009 and 2019. 9 was a more intensive 15 surrogate mothers, but second in 2019, I went and interviewed 25 surrogate mothers, 45 surrogate mothers. And at this point of time, in 2009, it was just mushrooming everywhere. It was a complete chaos in India. 2019 was very close, so everybody knew the ban is coming up. Okay, so that is what was the situation in India. In 2009, so this was something that happened much earlier. So this girl was kidnapped, she was raped, and she was made to conceive 3 times. She was traded. She doesn't really know where all she was taken, and she was a very young girl. She was 13 years old when she was and what the previous speakers were talking about, the traditional surrogacy. So this is like not even traditional surrogacy. This was rape. So that was what was happening. They were treated like absolutely like objects, and this was happening when surrogacy was legal. Okay, so people were using the same network that was used for prostitution network along the Ganges Valley. So girls were getting trafficked to Delhi. Now Delhi is quite a prime area, and when it was legal, this kind of things were happening. Before the law, it was supposedly, I'm talking about much earlier, in 2009 and all, it was estimated to be about $2 billion. Then it increased quite a lot. But trafficking was happening in Delhi, Visakhapatnam, Chennai. Couples were preying on their own domestic workers, asking them to become surrogate mothers for them. Because it was legal and it was fully allowed, people were doing all kinds of things, desperate things to actually to actually make use of the surrogacy. Now, after the law, as Mary Joseph also said, this specialist of Delhi-based private hospitals suddenly moved to West Bengal, which is one like a corner of India. It's in the border area. And what they were doing is, so it did have an impact. So the countries, after there was a ban, all these people who were openly doing it, they moved to the border areas where the governance was less. And then they were transporting these children to Nepal. And international, intended parents sitting at Nepal were getting these children through the border areas. Okay, so there's very much evidence that we may not have data, because this is something that is so illegal and inhuman that we cannot have data. But these are all data that we have to say that the ban actually had an impact. Coming back to the surrogate mothers, so we know that these things happened. India brought in a ban on commercial surrogacy. So what was the situation of surrogate mothers? There was a lot of vulnerability. So they did not have adequate nutrition. They were poor people, lesser employment opportunities. And so what is the impact was? They were left with lesser bargaining power, not only in the surrogacy process, but also in the lawmaking. So what bargaining power can they have, even in control the law if people in their family wants them to do surrogacy? So most of the women who were into surrogacy were either poor or very poor. Okay, and we'll also see that none of them had actually had great impact financially, as Mary Joseph rightly said. So conceptually, if you look, Nella Kabir's concept of women's empowerment, she says that when people do not have choices, adequate choices to make, and those choices are resulting in dependence on powerful others, it rules out the capacity for individuals to make meaningful choices. Why I'm saying is there's one set of feminists who might say that it is her choice. She wants to become a surrogate mother. But even conceptually, it has been said that this is not a meaningful choice. When you have no other choice, that cannot be a meaningful choice. So what was happening is that something like this was happening all over the world. Okay, we could see surrogate homes not only in India but all over the world. They were made to stay away from their family. They were overfed, and the payment was based on their weight. They were asked to do nanny care. They were asked to breastfeed their children. So if some mother had actually, if a surrogate mother, if a woman had actually left her breastfeeding child at home, then she would, her breast milk would be dried up using medication before she can actually become a surrogate mother. So these are all human rights violations that were clearly taking place. This has completely stopped. There are no surrogate homes, and this was also happening the violations were also happening of people who were surrogate mothers who were staying in their own homes as well, even if it was in their own home. unfair distribution of benefits. So a small clinic suddenly became a big, lavish, self-contained campus. And if you look at the right side, this was their plan. When I was there, they had a plan. And when I went back in the second time, they actually had constructed a new building. The surrogate mothers were in the basement. Okay, so they had no, any contact with the sunlight. So it was, the main aim was to keep them away from any kind of humanity, basically. Inequalities. If you look at the inequalities, there was this one case study where a woman, she just wanted to buy a house of that size. And she went into surrogacy. I want to show this case study because this is one of the few intended parents that I met. And this is a couple from Canada. Her husband was owning a computer firm, and they actually first, adopted a child from Vietnam, but she was not happy with it. So she wanted a German-looking child with German characteristics because her husband was German. And it was successful. She had 2 boys, and she was very happy about it. But when I asked her, why did you specifically come to India? She basically said, I basically came because there was lesser rights for surrogate mothers. Okay, that was the main source of attraction for her. So the lesser right we give to surrogate mothers in our own countries, it's going to bring all these people from outside our country. Okay, as mentioned earlier, there are surrogate mothers who slipped worse into poverty. For example, in this, 63% of the poorest mothers remained poor. That was my study findings from the 2019 study. In this case study, you can clearly see that she gave birth to twins to a US couple, and then her mother-in-law fell sick, and she had all the money was spent on that, and it was never spent on anything useful. And because there was a less social security, she has actually gone down to staying in a hut near the railway track. So unethical medical practices were going on. Why it is important to know is that you can never know what is happening in the 4 walls of a laboratory, or it is something that you cannot regulate because it happens within that clinic's 4 walls. So it is not possible. So in this case, there was a death of a surrogate mother. So Gracie was living in a hostel, in a surrogate hostel, and her roommate died, and she was petrified. She was her health deteriorated. She was forced to do in utero selective abortions, and her, being a Christian, she did not want to do that, but it was forced on her. Then the impact it had on her 4-year-old child when she gave up the surrogate baby. Her child was very much, affected by that. This is a near-death situation where she, again, in utero selective abortions, but she almost lost her child. She lost all her babies because they selectively aborted only one child, and eventually she lost all her babies. She was in an ICU, intensive care unit, for 3 months, and then she's like, her loss of health, loss of livelihood, and who's going to pay for all that? Is there a compensation that you can give for these women? The psychological impact of these women. So I just asked her, and she started sobbing, and her children were, watching all this. So the impact is much more than just a surrogate mother. It has an impact on the entire family. And my study says that 64% of women experienced adverse health impact of surrogacy. Regarding children, pardon? Okay, regarding children, the impact it had on children. So there were these children all around the country. In my small study of 15 surrogate mothers, the initial study, 2009, I found this German kids living in a low-income settlement in India because their mother had done illegal surrogacy. So intended parents had done illegal surrogacy from Germany, and Germany it was not allowed. And I found them living because the mother did not get an extension to her tourist visa. So all kinds of things were happening unless I just looked at the baby and said they don't look Indian, and then I found out they were German kids. For example, this surrogate mother, she was paid less because the children were not fair-skinned. So there's so much of racism, in the surrogacy market. When it comes to children, most of these children were preterm because these surrogate mothers were not able to carry the babies to full term. And many of them were dying. There were few babies who died, who I knew in my study died, but there is no record of it. How many children are dying? Payment was based on the weight of the baby. There was no additional payment. For example, one of the previous cases I said, she had an miscarriage at the 7th month, but she was not paid anything for that. Disabled children, as I told earlier, are left, in orphanages, or they're just abandoned. So these are all the things that, even in my book that I have written, that these are all the, biological, things that are sold, become a market item to be sold. And additional cost means it's similar to something when you go and buy a flat. They say, okay, this is garden facing. You can see the lake from here. Similarly, extra money is given for, caste, skin color, religion, all the sex of the child, weight of the child. So you have additional cost that is incurred by the intended parents, and, wanted. It's a high demand kind of situation. So presently, surrogacy regulation in India is they are allowing altruistic surrogacy, and there is a lot of push for allowing again opening up surrogacy in India. But fortunately, it's not succeeding. But there is there is a slow and subtle push towards allowing commercial surrogacy again. And the global relevance of this is that first, its entire market is based on global inequalities. It has similarities to the trafficking and prostitution, because the network that is used is very similar. The kind of money gain is similar. The kind of lucrative business is similar. And this case studies show that women are just used as, as an object just for the baby. So what impact it has on the surrogate mothers, nobody cares for. The obsession of geneticization. I want to have this genetic child, no matter what. So that is what is driving this market, especially in India. Adoption is quite simple. It's not that difficult. But still, if people are going for surrogacy and trying to, look for options for surrogacy, that means there is a obsession for genetization. And the last point I want to mention is the reproductive injustice. So even in my book, I have written that intended parents who want to go for surrogacy, they face social stigma, they face psychological problems, they face physical stress of infertility treatment, they face violation of bodily integrity. But when it comes to the choice of surrogacy, when they choose surrogacy, they are actually putting another woman through social stigma, through psychological challenges, through violation of her body integrity, and also they are putting her through health, freedom, and liberty, and even her life at stake. So it cannot be considered as a constitutional right. Okay, so I question that reproductive justice basically aims to reduce inequality and not to use someone else's vulnerability for one's own individual procreative liberty. And hence, this whole practice needs to be banned, completely banned, because the more loopholes that are left, the more people are going to keep widening those loopholes, trying to widen those loopholes and use those loopholes for practice that is highly, highly exploitative, is what I want to say. Thank you very much.
Дякую, Шіло. Я
Thank you,
слухала
Sheila. I was listening to your speech, and I heard a lot of things, a lot of the same things happened in Ukraine to women, including violation of human rights, medical abuse, and also customers who demand women not to ride bicycle, not to have sex with her own husband, not to swim in a pond, many other demands. And I want to invite Ms. Зоряна Скалецka, who is member of City Council in Kiev and who used to be Minister of Healthcare in Ukraine in 2019. And she will talk about medical ethics for surrogacy. Зоряна, please, your floor. Greetings to all participants. For a long time, I haven't had such a huge audience to speak to. In the end of the speeches, hopefully we will see the path to the future more clearly. Because in healthcare, if 1998, when was first case, there was a woman who had nowhere to go, who was given birth to a child for a 3-bedroom apartment. Such a good proposal. It was in news in the newspapers then. Now we have crazy practices of black, white, and gray surrogacy. I wanted to concentrate in my speech today. Surrogacy is like a tester of what we have in Ukraine. What is the legal status? What are the ethical issues? This is not just philosophy, this is practical application. Can they even be combined? And what can we do in Ukraine? Law is the fundament of morals. If there is no law or ethics, we leave a person facing just market. So I wanted to say that law is the basis of morals. And if you don't have ethics, morals, if you don't have law, in fact, everyone faces just market laws. And market laws are such: whoever has money governs the lives of other people. And if we are talking about surrogacy, this is a testing paper for what is happening in medical sphere or bioethics. And what we have as a fact, we have only 2 pages in the decree of the Ministry of Healthcare. That's the only document that regulates it. And 1 article in the Family Code. Most of you who work with children, you know, huge pile of papers you have to work with. The public servants here know. You need to address a heap of various decrees. And this issue is so hard, so complicated, and you have just half a page of such a complicated issue of instructions. So legal, what is legal certainty? Do we understand what is the attitude of the state to this phenomenon? We say that we are a democratic country and we want to live under the supremacy of law. So we need to know how the system works. What are these norms, how they are applied, and what are the consequences? I will stop on detail. Even now, when in Ukraine, on legal basis, we can use surrogacy, still the field of uncertainty is huge. And it contains especially many loopholes against those who cannot protect themselves. Absence, different clinics act in different ways. Some clinics try to work transparently. They can show you something, but there are no registers. There are no official lists. And some clinics don't even make documents. There is no unified procedure of consent. of consent from a surrogate mother that she understands what she's signing up to. And I remind you, we ask for consent, informed consent from our patients for any medical procedures, and this must go the same. But we don't have procedure, so they are unprotected. The next contracts that they are being made. If you could look at the contracts that are offered for some surrogate mothers, for the like amount they are supposed to receive for this project, but there are a lot of penalties for various violations. So these points of contract just deprive her of the rights. There is no responsibility of medical institutions now. Any clinic can say, we just do reproductive technology, that's it. So they are not responsible. There is no medical ethics here, no responsibility of medics for what they do. It's not even about morals. There are no lawful mechanisms of protection and checking the intentions. There was a case when American citizen was detained by the security service of Ukraine because she had no documents for a child. She just abandoned the child and went to the USA. And the child left here in Ukraine. So we have a lot of children like this who do not have guardianship. What about families of surrogate mothers? Their condition, psychological condition, no one actually cares about it. There is no procedure for the notary, how the notary is supposed to. There are no rules based on which we do this. And the people who do it, who undergo it, has a lot of questions. What are the consequences of a surrogate mother? What if they have problems of in family with guardianship rights for children, deterioration of health? You had a lot. The speakers quoted a lot of abuse cases, and in Ukraine it's very similar. They engage internally displaced people. They can have problems with health, and again they have no money and they need to do something. And the worst thing is with legal uncertainty. In my course in the Kyiv-Mohyla Academy in 2008, we always consider this aspect because it's very sensitive. Who or what is the child in this contract? Is it just an item? Are you just renting a woman as incubator? But the largest question, best interest of a child. Or is it just desire of some people to buy a child like they're in supermarket? Just they go to the clinic. So best interest of the child must be the priority, but they are never taken into account. So we have legal uncertainty today. We have a lot of vulnerable situations for all participants. And if we ask ourselves what is the problem, we remind ourselves the directive that in advocacy they have a directive where surrogacy is described as exploitation, and we need to listen to them because we are striving to become part of European Union. But one of the most important things also this exploitation is against the will and the dignity of a person. The dignity and the will of the person is the core of all human rights. And if we allow it to be violated, we violate our core beliefs. And here we transit to ethics, because medical ethics needs to have dignity of a person as a core. Why many developed European countries don't have such serious problems like we have in Ukraine? Because all medical workers are being guided by certain ethical code. Each doctor, each medic, after becoming professional, they don't want to lose their practice. So ethics is very critical for them. It's more important for them than a couple of commercial practices. And in the countries where the ethics is ignored, we can see very many unethical practices. So bioethics are usually active not only in ethical but also in religious life. They work in these two directions to safeguard the dignity of people. And in Ukraine, we could take these examples to regulate it. We have European Convention on the protection of the rights and dignity of humans, and it's still not ratified by Ukraine. Convention on the rights, human rights and biomedicine, as of 1997. So, it says no manipulations can be done on a human body if it impairs human dignity. So, if we ratified convention of Oviedo Convention in Ukraine, when we speak about ethics, we understand that there is privacy, autonomy. It is being violated, absolutely, 100%. When they are being locked up and ban any decisions about their private life. So it's not just life of that person, but also the children of that person, at least family. So they are dependent. Consent, informed consent is element that is obligatory. And when we speak about the consent in the medicine, it always provides for a right to withdraw consent. If we ban withdrawal consent by financial penalties, we withdraw their human rights. In the chaos that we have, absence of the ethical component, which is the key for doctors. In Ukraine, doctors also need to follow this ethics. It's just never stipulated anywhere. So we have the situation where surrogate mothers are helpless to the contract, to the system. And second thing, this surrogate mother cannot withdraw because they have huge penalties. There can be certain problems with psychological health, and then they can lose their jobs and have a lot of psychological problems, lose their jobs, even after just donating eggs. It should be controlled too, but unfortunately we don't. So, interaction of the law and the ethics is very critical. If we approach to regulation of this issue as in other countries, everyone knows that there still will be some loopholes in the law, but we need to be guided by the ethics, by respect to dignity. We must understand that a child cannot be an item for sale. And this disjunction of these two worlds, of the law and of the ethics, is the main thing that is supporting awful reputation of Ukraine on the international level. Many countries voiced their concern about it, and we worked on the changes that were not adopted, unfortunately. But we need to get integrated into European values. Bans. Many people want to leave to do complete ban. Even if we do that, we still need to we still need to observe the dignity of a person. Second, during the war, we have a lot of talks about reproductive health as to soldiers, fighters. So we need still the laws in this sphere, even if we don't speak about surrogacy. This is a very sensitive sphere. And it should be ethical to the child that can, for example, be born after the death of the father. Medical self-government. If we had medical self-government, like we discussed in the beginning of 2000s, we would have less abuse of women in vulnerable position. We wouldn't have such rampant violations in surrogacy sphere. And today, the these 2 pages of regulations, they are not contemporary. They are not adequate to the situation. But my main conclusion for me in today's speeches is whatever are the market perturbations, large amounts of money, every time when we work with women that can be used as incubators and exploited for the sale of children, it should be seen as harmful practice by the society and by medics. And we need to give all possible alternatives in social protection system for these women to exit this situation, so they don't have to compromise with their conscience and do the surrogacy. Thank you for today's meeting. It's very interesting, both from the specialists and from those who experienced it on ourselves and who can explain what it feels like.
Дякую, пані Зоряно.
Thank you, Ms. Зоряna. And as a moderator, I will remind you a couple of points. We all know the notion of human rights. Among these human rights, there is no right to have your own biological children. If a person cannot have children, they can use any available medical technologies to help them give birth to a child, like man and woman both. But unfortunately, in Ukraine, they see surrogacy as a reproductive technology. And this creates a background for exploitation of women to buy children from them. And the child born from such surrogate mother, the only mother the child knows is the mother who gave birth to the child. That's it. And so in the countries where surrogacy started earlier, they had a law that surrogate mothers have an option not to give away the child that they have given birth to. And it's a huge trauma for both the mother and the child. And in the world, there is already a movement of children who born after surrogacy, who call to complete ban of this practice as violation of children's rights. So in addition to this European coalition for ban of surrogacy that was represented by Marie-Joseph 2 days, there is a group who speak regularly on many events in South America, in Asia, and speak about this practice as violation of children's rights specifically. I know that the Ministry of Ukraine offered the law. They contemplated the law, but we found it out by chance. The public was not invited for the discussion of this law. We don't know what they want to adopt, in fact, even though it has been prepared now. Dear colleagues, please turn off the microphones.
В країнах Європи зараз іде натуральне полювання на українських
In
громадян.
the countries of Europe, there is a hunt on Ukrainian citizens because our law is so lenient to use them in surrogacy. In Britain, our colleagues, feminists, told us there is an application like Tinder where you can look through photos of mothers from Ukraine, and you can use them while it's war and it's cheap. And people who seek women, the recruiters in Ukraine make more money than the surrogate mothers themselves. And more than 95% of these pregnancies are pregnancies commissioned by foreigners. In addition, these foreigners have no limitations how many children they can order, no obligation to take this child with them if this child is unfit. And there are many cases like that. They don't like the gender, the sex of the child, color of skin, color of hair, health problems are more typical for surrogacy, as Marie-Joseph mentioned. They are 3 times more dangerous, risky than normal pregnancies. So for children, it's more risky too. And in these conditions, the permission of commercial surrogacy is direct threat to demography. So, a number of problems, violation of the rights of the adults, violation of the rights of children, hogging the medical resources. Our medical resources are overstretched. And in addition, women who do this practice as surrogate mother are ostracized. But the commissioners are not ostracized at all. In our society, buying a child is a sign of progress. It's seen like this. We have just 4 minutes until the end of this event. Valentina, please tell our participants what is the procedure to receive certificate after this. I want to remind you, if you have any specific questions to our dear speakers, you please send them to myself, and I will forward them to Ms. Sheila, Zoriana, Ms. Marie-Joseph, and we will translate them and we will send them to you together with translated presentations. And for the next time, I will ask you to connect a bit earlier. We will start in half an hour because unfortunately we had to connect people during the event. Valentina, as to receiving certificates, I was sending it in the chat, but let me voice it to, after the end of all 3 events, trainings, you will need to send to the email in the chat description of the problem in your sphere that you face with in your work for all 3 problems, and who is executing, what you offer to do, and expected results. Please, the deadline is the 3rd of May, and I will now remind you this through mailing list and in the chat. Public servants, to receive the certificate, they will need to additionally register on the portal of knowledge management. We will send you the link for registration. Thank you, Valentina. I apologize for having so little time for discussion proper. Unfortunately, we don't have time for this. We only have 2 hours for this event. Hopefully, we will continue this conversation. We already discussed with the Higher School of Public Education, Public Management, to conduct an extended course for these new challenges in human rights. These are surrogacy, pornography, prostitution, which are still not taken as a threat and not officially evaluated. Maybe we will listen to Miss Olivia. She's a very strong speaker. But for today, we will have to finish it. Thank you very much to our today's speakers for the experience that they shared, for their constant advocacy work, research work. They constantly work with international organizations, European organizations, to close the gaps that enables exploitation of women and sale of children. And I want to thank our partners and co-organizers, Minister of Social Policy, bowing to you, Public Administration under Caucasus.
Вищій школі публічного управління за наданий Zoom, за надану співпрацю, за надану можливість для вас отримати відповідні сертифікати, що ви пройшли це навчання. І, звичайно, ООН «Жінки в Україні» за їхню підтримку і участь. Окрема подяка міжнародним організаціям та мережам, які підтримали нас. Це Міжнародна коаліція за заборону сурогатного материнства, це Європейська мережа мігранток, це Жіноча міжнародна платформа дій і Офісу спеціального представника та координатора ОБСЄ з протидії торгівлі людьми за професійність і за довіру. Дякую вам всім, що сьогодні були з нами, незважаючи на всі ті технічні накладки. І сподіваємося, що інформація, яку ви сьогодні отримали, допоможе вам краще розуміти, із чим зараз Україна має справу і як ми можемо запобігти цим формам експлуатації насильства. І нагадую, що наступна наша зустріч 18 квітня, вона буде присвячена темі сексуальної експлуатації онлайн і порнографії. У нас так само будуть і українські експерти, експертки, і буде низка дуже впливових і відомих іноземних експерток міжнародного рівня. І, власне, технічно за хвилину до завершення нашого часу я вам ще раз всім дякую, бажаю спокійного вечора і сподіваюся побачити вас з нами 18 числа. На все добре.
Дякую.
Дякуємо, до побачення.
До побачення.
Дякую, до побачення.
Гарного дня. Дуже дякую.
І дуже вам
До
дякуємо.
побачення. Дякую, до побачення.
Дякуємо, до побачення.
Дякую, до побачення.
Дякуємо, до побачення.
До побачення.
Дякую, до побачення.